So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 36, that's what it is, 36. I can count, I know how this works. I am of course joined as usual by the lovely Vishanti, who is wearing in fact some feeders today, very nice. First, before we really get into things, I have a couple things I want to say. One is, thank you to Trail Mix, who got me the game Polybridge from my Steam wishlist, I appreciate that. I have been at, sorry, I had some fun with that last night. I realized you should never, under any circumstances, trust me to design a bridge in real life. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
That's good to know.
Yeah. I also want to say to all of my viewers who are inhabiting that northern land of ice and snow, unfit for human habitation, known as Canada, happy Canada Day, because that is today.
Oh, it's Canada Day.
Yeah, July 1st. Nice. So, you know, I don't know, go play the Canadian national anthem or something. Oh, Canada. Yeah, that one. We all know it. If you've seen a hockey game, you've seen Oh, Canada.
I'm gonna link that video of the Trombone Hero game where someone's playing that, and it's painful and it's hilarious.
That is a really good one. All right, before we get going into this, Ben Tovand, no relation, who's been a member for 36 months at the tetrapod level. I believe Woo-hoo! Ben Tovand, who is my longest standing member. There might be one other person who's either equal or beating him, but yeah. But Ben says, don't forget to click like, and then sends a Godzilla, which we're going to drink for, because we're drinking today. So take a sip. There we go. Which means it's time to go over the drinking rules, because we got rules. So, the first one that you just saw is anyone who sends a super chat or a milestones chat, which has one of our kaiju emojis, which include Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, will take a drink for that. Now, you do have to be a member on the channel to avail yourself of this option. But that only starts at $1.99 a month. You know, that's pretty cheap for all these emojis. Also, if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG, that's Answers in Genesis, are a bag of dicks, we will take a drink. Now, you might have to be a little creative, because if you just type in AIG or a bag of dicks and hit send, YouTube will censor that. They're like, no, not allowed. Also works for milestone chats. Basically, anything I say for super chats also works for milestone chats. Those are basically just free super chats, as far as I'm concerned. Additionally, if anyone gifts memberships, we will take a drink for each membership gifted up to about 30 or so, at which point it'll just be a finish the drink and get a new one, rather than specifically counting out 30 or 40 or 50 drinks or something. And before you ask, yeah, we're still like 50 away from getting an emoji at least. And that's assuming that I've done my math right and that we're not actually 100 away from an emoji. So, yeah, it'll probably be a while. But hey, that's just a challenge. All right, now, not all of the drink triggers involve you guys. Some of them only involve the people on screen, the creationists in question. Now, if they say something that's just too stupid and we just kind of have to take a drink, well then, we'll do a drink for that. Also, Too Young to Feel This Old has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. There we go. They went to Robert Adsit, Bio Alley, Rohan Orton, Ian Debunked, and Dustin Carroll. Here come 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3.
While you're doing that,
4.
Anyone who is in the Discord
And 5.
will have their life enriched by clicking on the link that I just sent.
There you go. And
oh, Canada.
If you are a member or a patron, you're not in a Discord, go to your Discord, go to settings, go to connections, and add the account that you joined from, whether it be Patreon or YouTube. And that will automatically add you to the Discord server. Now, if the creationists say something that is factually accurate, that comes out of their own brain and not just a quotation that they're reading, comes from their brain, down past the heart, back up to the voice box, and then they say it, that we will take a drink for. We will also take a drink if they tell a joke that doesn't land or a story that didn't happen. So, for instance, if a creationist say, would confuse an argument that they had with their shampoo bottle for an argument that they had with a Berkeley professor on an airplane, then, well, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink anytime they mention the National Socialist German Workers' Party or various infamous, we'll say, members or various notable activities that they might have gotten up to in, say, the mid-20th century. Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink for what's called Trojan source. That is what happens when we check a creationist source on the rare occasions that they bother to give one, and find that not only does the source not support what they're saying, because that's essentially all the time, but it directly contradicts the point that they're making, which is less common. Usually it's just an irrelevant source, but sometimes it's a directly contradictory source, and we take a drink for that. Also, occasionally, Mothra or Godzilla will come by audibly. We will take a drink for that. And I think that covers all of... Oh, predictions, yes. If it's not clear where the creationist is going to go, then if Vishanti or I can successfully predict it, we'll take a drink for that too. All right. Also, when I say take a drink, I'm not saying take a shot. This is not a shot drink. This is like take a sip of your beer kind of drink. Right? All right. Are we ready? Vishanti, do you have anything else you need to add?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
What is it?
As of 6 minutes ago, we hit 75 days that Sal Cordova's bitch made.
That is true. It's disappointingly true, isn't it?
I'm not disappointed. I didn't expect him to
Okay.
behave like a rational, decent person, but I'm also kind of a dick, so...
I was hopeful, you know?
Okay. That's fair.
I'm allowed to be hopeful.
You're probably a better person than me. So.
I don't know about that, but I'm also not going to try too hard to contest. All right. I'm going to hit play on this. Here we go.
Right. Okay.
Oh, by the way, I'm drinking gin and tonics. And no, I'm not taking gigantic gulps. I'm taking, like, like a tablespoon worth if you're in the US. I don't know what that turns into in milliliters. Sorry. And this is the Q&A section.
Is my favorite cocktail.
Nice. What about gimlets? Okay.
Let's get to it. First question is, what is carbon dating, and how does it fit into creationism?
Okay, so our plan right now is to listen to well, first we'll give our answer, then we'll listen to their answer, and then we'll critique their answer. So, of course, what is carbon dating and how does it fit into creationism? Well, carbon dating is a method of using the radioactive carbon isotope with 14 as its atomic number, 14C or carbon 14, however you want to say it, and it will decay into nitrogen, 14N or nitrogen 14, however you want to say it. And it does this at a predictable half-life. The half-life is, if I remember correctly, around 50,000 years. Don't quote me on that. But the atmosphere has a certain amount of carbon-14 just in it, naturally, because nitrogen-14 is turned into carbon-14 in processes of basically because of the radiation from the sun. Now, we know that this has fluctuated throughout time, which is why we have methods of calibrating this. So we have calibration curves. So you can't just naively use the decay rate. But there are calibration curves which use various other dating methods to calibrate them. And then you get a date. Now, it's important to note that this only works on once living material. So it doesn't work on rocks. It doesn't work on permineralized fossils. There are also known limitations, like it tends not to work on marine organisms. And now we know it tends not to work on organisms collected near roads, because organisms that live near roads tend to breathe in a lot of old carbon because of cars. And what is cars used for fuel? Yeah, fossil fuels that are already really, really, really old. So we have some limitations. And how it fits into young Earth creationism is by utterly debunking it. Yeah. Now we have a Inkboy who's been a member for 15 months says, have you discouraged into playing... I'm not sure how this works. Have you discouraged into playing drinking game? Also, Vishanti is kind of what? Bag full of... Oh, yeah. Vishanti is kind of a what? Bag full of what is AIG? Yeah, we'll take a drink for that, yeah.
Well, the nice thing between or differentiating myself and AIG is I might be kind of a dick. But they're a bag full of them.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see what their response is to the question. Oh, we got Dan Biddle, the biggest brain here.
So radiocarbon dating is when they take carbon-14 and date it because it has a...
No, man, you can't just take carbon-14 and date it. I'm just going to take a drink. If you're holding some carbon-14 in your hand, there's no way for you to know when it was created or how old it is. That's not how anything works, Dan.
Known half-life
Just
of about...
take the carbon-14.
Mm-hmm. Just grab a hold of a bunch of carbon-14, and then you look at it and you guess how old it is, and that's what radiocarbon dating is, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to just get my jar, carbon-14. I'm just going to take some out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe what he means is you need to take it out, like, to a nice restaurant, and then, like, maybe a bar or a movie or something, and then see... Maybe that's what he means when you say you gotta date your carbon-14, you know?
Okay.
Maybe a concert. That could be fun, you know?
5,700 years. I'm actually on an international committee or panel of radiocarbon experts around the world.
Bullshit.
Okay.
Absolute bull. That is just a straight up lie. I'm drinking for that. That is bull. There is absolutely...
Needed.
Yeah. Jeez. Dan, you might be in a group that calls themselves experts on carbon dating, but you are in no way on an actual panel of experts on carbon dating because you don't know what it is, which we just saw. That is the... Wow. That's... Can I say mendacious? Does that rise to the level of mendacity needed? Yeah, I'm going to go with a yes.
I would just say it's pathetic, but
well, yeah.
And I get to the privilege of talking with people who actually pull the handles on accelerator mass spectrometer machines. These people own carbon dating. They know it really, really well. And all of them are young Earth creationists. So none of them are afraid of how carbon dating fits with our paradigm of a young Earth.
Of course they're not afraid of it. They've already decided beforehand that they're just going to reject any evidence that they need to in order to maintain their previous beliefs. Why would they be afraid of it? That's silly. And that really is what it comes down to, is like, you're not afraid of evidence if you don't care about evidence, right? Why would you be? And that's...
Scientists are as afraid of carbon dating as I am of chupacabra sneaking into my bedroom at night and stealing any number of pieces of clothing from my closet.
Even the underpants?
To sell it to the... Not at all.
You might be sneaking in to steal your underpants to sell it to the underpants gnomes.
I am as afraid of that, which is to say, again, not at all.
Yeah.
Earth being about 6,000 years old. The problem with carbon dating is it works good for a couple thousand years, and then after a couple thousand years, you have to really start leaning heavily on assumptions.
He says this because... I'm going to tell you exactly why he says this, right? It's not for any evidential reasons, because we actually have calibration curves that go back to like 50,000 years, right? He says this specifically because young Earth creationists and, you know, broadly very conservative biblical literalists overall like carbon dating for things going back to about the time of Jesus because it helps their biblical archaeology stuff, right? You can say, oh, you know, we found this ossuary with the word John carved into it in Aramaic, and we dated, you know, organic residue in it to the middle of the 2nd century. So we think maybe this was like John the Baptist or something. Oh, cool.
Someone in the chat is asking if you could turn your volume down a little bit.
Yeah, I can do that.
A little loud.
Sorry about that. Yep. Let me know if that's better. If it's not, I can turn it down a little bit more. So yeah, these people really, really, really want carbon dating to work up to about the point of the time of Jesus. Because then they can say, look at all this great evidence that the Bible is historically accurate in terms of the Gospels. Like, look, we carbon dated this thing from the reign of Herod Antipas. And that's a guy who's mentioned in the Bible. And yeah, it is. He's a real guy. He really existed. The authors of the Bible didn't make that up. I'm like, see, it's all true. But then you're like, oh, okay, well, what about this horse skull here found in the tomb of an Iron Age princess that dated to like, 7,000, not Iron Age, but that would be like Neolithic, that dated to like 7,000 years ago. What about that? Like, oh, well, you see, that's not accurate anymore because we've gone past the time of the Bible. That's what it comes down to. Once it becomes no longer tenable for their interpretation of the Bible, that's when they're like, oh, well, this is just all assumptions. There's no actual difference. Nothing actually changes about carbon dating once you go past the 2,000-year mark.
The chat is now saying the video is too low in comparison.
Oh, goodness. I will turn the video up. It's weird because the numbers on OBS don't seem to agree, but hey, that's not what's important. What's important is how people are hearing it online.
Well, Discord is also flashing my window anytime that you're talking, so I don't know why things are happening like that today.
Well, you also, like, for some reason, like, my mic cut out, but just for you, Discord still heard me. Like, it's been a weird day for sound.
Is Mercury in retrograde? Is this why we're having so many tech issues? That's a joke, by the way. Don't take that seriously, folks.
Because there are 8 different external factors that can change radiocarbon dating. Things like Earth's magnetic pull to the moon. Solar flares can change it. If you have a volcanic eruption, it changes carbon dating.
The volcanic eruption, that's largely not true. Maybe locally you might get some effect, but that's not really true. The Earth's magnetic field, that is a factor. Solar flares are so transient that they're really not going to have a major effect, right? So a solar flare can bombard the atmosphere with extra radiation, which can then make a local and very short-lived spike in carbon-14 production, but it's not going to be enough to skew your results by thousands of years, or in tens of thousands in some cases, right? Because it's going to be like, hey, one day, the Earth made like 5 times as much carbon-14 as normal. Like, okay, well, that's 5 days extra, or actually it's 4 days extra carbon-14. Over the course of the next 20,000 years, what do those 5 days mean? Nothing. Really? Nothing. So solar flares are meaningless, basically.
Okay, so I'm getting feedback. They're saying the video's at like a 3, I'm at a 4.5, and you were at like 8. And then someone follows up with that they can barely hear the video. I don't know what's happening.
This is very
bizarre.
bizarre.
Loud and clear. You're not like blowing my ears out, so.
All right. Well, I just turn the video up to its maximum volume and see what happens. And I guess I'll turn me down. Let me see what else I can do. Yeah, this is really weird because my OBS numbers are like, oh no, everything's fine, everything's normal. In fact, if anything, my OBS numbers currently say that I'm much quieter than I normally am. This is very weird. Maybe YouTube is doing something weird? I don't know. Gigi says we are both towns. Thank you very much, Gigi. I appreciate it.
Even forest fires can change carbon dating in an entire region. So these assumptions go on and on and on and on.
No, forest fires really can't do that. Because what does a forest fire do?
Oh my goodness.
Forest fires are chemical reactions. They're not nuclear reactions. And this is a thing that I feel like people mix up a lot. Chemical reactions have to do with things like electron orbitals, right? They don't affect the nucleus. And nuclear reactions only affect chemistry in so much as they might change the total charge of the nucleus and thereby change how many orbitals that nucleus has. So, no, a forest fire has nothing to do with carbon-14.
Then when they were testing atom bombs in the night,
sound balance is good now. One person says it's God now, which I much prefer to them typing it correctly.
All hail the sound balance. Which is weird, because on my end, it's the video is now absurdly loud. So I have no idea how any of this is working.
Okay. Well, I also, on my end, I moved the mic a little bit closer to myself.
Okay.
So hopefully that will help me be balanced, but yes.
1950s, the amount of radiocarbon doubled in the atmosphere from 1950 to 1960. So there's all kinds of assumptions that you have to believe are true and constant when you want to try to use carbon dating to go back 10
No, actually, we don't assume that things are constant. So carbon dating is matched to things like ice core dating and dendrochronology. So ice core dating, you go into not the edges of places like Greenland or Antarctica where they get a lot of precipitation, but you go really far inland into the deserty areas where they only get like a few inches of precipitation a year or a few centimeters, depending on whether or not you want to use communism or freedom units. And then they drill down into these places where, like I said, very little precipitation. So you get a very good long record of the ice. Or dendrochronology, where you check to see, you have tree rings that correspond between different trees that are cut down at different times. So you can trace this continually back thousands of years in many cases. And then you compare things like atmospheric carbon-14 trapped in ice bubbles. Or, well, bubbles in ice. Bubbles aren't made of ice, obviously. They're bubbles in the ice. You get it. And then you draw a calibration curve. Now, what's the assumption there? Basically that organisms will absorb carbon-14 from the atmosphere, and that since you're looking directly at the atmosphere in the case of ice rings, you can check, or because you have a direct measurement of time with dendrochronology, you can then also calibrate carbon-14 dating by dating that wood that you already dated via dendrochronology. None of those are really assumptions. Those are all just measurements, right? So, yeah, we know pretty conclusively that carbon-14 works within its margin of errors and within its known limitations, which is just every measurement system, right? Like, you can't use a ruler to measure across the length of, like, Africa, right? It's not going to work.
It's not practical.
Yeah. Even if you thought you had the time to painstakingly move that ruler, there's going to be problems, right? Like, how are you going to deal with elevation? What's going to happen when a tree gets in the way? What happens when an elephant steps on your foot? I don't know. So, like, yeah, it's just not going to work. Same thing.
Oh.
There are limitations to measurements.
W Swordsman in the chat says that they totally disagree with how you describe nuclear reactions. They got what you were trying to say, but don't think you said it properly. I'm not sure what they mean.
I would be happy for a better way to state it.
10,000 years or 20,000
my field of expertise. So I'm not even going to try.
1,000 years or 30,000 years. But this panel that I'm on with people who understand this very, very well, they're operating the machines.
Remember, no matter how well they understand it, they also have a prior obligation to reject any data that does not already confirm their ideas, because they're young Earth creationists. It's the only way to be a young Earth creationist, is to steadfastly reject data.
None of us are afraid of the results, and it's just that you have to get into a lot of assumptions the further and further back that you go. The problem with the
DM KJV get book titling says, I've been away from their keyboard from the beginning. Has Dapper admitted he's a NASA shill yet?
No, because I'm not a NASA shill. I'm a USGS shill. Get it right, guys.
Wide variability of radiocarbon dates that people were getting became so bad that years ago the British Research Council did a blind experiment where they sent out radiocarbon dating artifacts to about over 36 labs around the world.
Artifacts, so not organic material, maybe? It would be great if we had a citation for this.
And the results came back incredibly. Only 7 of the labs got it vaguely correct. Every other lab of about 36 missed the radiocarbon dates by hundreds and hundreds of years. And these
Dapper, you just played yourself.
What?
Okay, so Landon Knoll was trying to say that sessile tunicates are centimeters and pelagic tunicates are inches, but fear if we evolved from African Americans monger counters with. I think that goes against pelagic tunicates not being God-fearing and American, as Dapper says. That therefore means that pelagic tunicates are centimeters, which means they are factually superior.
So here's a fun thing.
Great atheists!
All measuring units are fundamentally arbitrary, and there is no objective reason to prefer one over the other than just your subjective ease of use, which depends...
That sounds like moving the goalposts.
Maybe, but your ease of use depends heavily on just what you're used to. Too Young to Feel As Old for $2 says, my oldest says, hi Vishanti, and he likes your name.
Thanks! Is your oldest also a Doctor Strange fan?
Good question. All right. So here's one of these things, right? Whenever a creationist says, "Oh, we did this thing where we sent a bunch of different samples to a bunch of different labs to have them radiometrically dated," I always get suspicious because I've never looked into such an instance where a source was cited to then not find some serious problem. Like, you sent things that were known to not be carbon datable, like diamonds or dinosaur teeth. And then you were like, oh, they sent back 50,000 years. How could that be true? It's like, because that's the highest number you get from carbon dating, guys. When carbon dating has like, oh, it's too old for us to tell, the answer you get back is like between 45,000 and 50,000 years. Or they'll do things like, oh, hey, we sent these igneous rock samples to a lab that told us we can't date samples younger than about 2,000 years. And the actual lava was only, like 10 years ago. And they all gave us numbers ranging from 1,000 to 2,000 years. Except this one, which gave me an answer of tens of millions of years. Oh, it's the one that has visible contaminants in it? Don't worry about that. So, given the track record...
I would just be asking them, hey, what do actual scientists use to date rocks? Hint, it's not carbon dating.
No, it's not. DM KJV book title wing says, clearly the biblical cubit is the only objective measure. I think it's about 4 bananas. No, see, bananas aren't a unit of length. They are a unit of ionizing radiation. Yeah, that tells you how much radiation is in an area.
I have a question that is within my field of expertise, finally. Mark Smith asks, out of curiosity, is there any relation between Vishanti and Agamotto? Yes, Agamotto is part of the Vishanti along with Hoggoth and Ashtur.
There you go.
The Vishanti are triumvirate, essentially a triumvirate of magic gods, in which Ashtur is the oldest and sort of started the whole thing, and Agamotto was the Earth's first sorcerer supreme.
Nice. That means that he's a sorcerer who also has sour cream on him.
That means that I'm 3 gods in a trench coat.
There you go. We're going Taco Bell rules for what the word supreme means.
Yes,
just means
exactly.
sour cream, which is a weird way to put it.
Sour cream.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. That's what supreme means, huh? You just put sour cream in it. Got it.
Put sour cream on it. All right.
Artifacts of known ages. So it's if you talk with archaeologists and people who use carbon dating a lot, the seasoned experts give it a thumbnail. That's all they'll do is to say, yeah, it's about 3,000 years old plus or minus maybe 500 years or plus or minus maybe 600 years.
Yeah, Dan, but when you get a date that says, it's about 12,000 years plus or minus 2,000 years, you know what that does to biblical chronology? According to your version of biblical chronology?
Flushes it down the toilet.
Yeah, it kind of ruins it just a little bit. So that's one of the things that you'll get creationists doing, like, oh, look, there's this giant margin of error. It's like, okay, but your chronology doesn't fit within that margin of error, so if it came back as 12,000 years plus or minus 6,000 years, then okay, sure, maybe that could fit within your biblical chronology. But sometimes it comes back as 30,000 years plus or minus 5,000 years, and it's whoops.
I would say the margin of error for a 10,000-year-old object having a 6,000 year margin of error is slightly different than 30,000 to 5,000.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that in the former case, if that was what routinely happened, such that it was within the creationist, the timeline was within that margin of error, then maybe they would be okay with it. But that's not what tends to happen.
Yeah, they only care about a margin of error when it confirms their already decided upon conclusion. Otherwise, they're like, it's wrong. It's just scientists trying to conspiracy something, evolutionists.
Pelagic Tunicate, Truth Official, for €5 says, please don't call Pelagic Tunicates Imperial. We don't have any feet. Also, AIG is a bag full of sessile and pelagic tunicates. Also, sour cream goes on any food. And we'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. I'm not sure I agree that sour cream goes on any food. I don't think I want it on bananas, for one thing.
I mean, look, if you want to put sour cream on your food, I'm not going to stop you. I'm just going to say that's not for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm definitely not going to stop you. I just disagree that it is good on everything. Very few things
My
are good on
objective
everything.
opinion is sour cream doesn't go on every food, but hey.
Yeah. Lots of food, though. I made nachos with some sour cream the other day. Yeah. Ground beef, sour cream, and pickled jalapeno peppers.
Did you have any cheese?
Well, yeah. But for me, like, cheese melted on top of tortilla chips is the minimal definition for nachos. So I feel like you don't need to say it. It's kind of like, it's like saying, oh, I made nachos. I used tortilla chips. Like, well, yeah, that's what nachos are. You don't have to say it. Anyway, here we go.
So it's a tool, and it will work good for relative dating in most instances, but it's not a reliable pinpointing precise science.
Great, thank you.
Good thing that the theory of evolution doesn't depend only on carbon dating. You'd be really screwed if it did.
Yeah, there is that too, which is like, if creationists did debunk everything about carbon dating, it wouldn't really help them very much.
Wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Because guess what still exists? Genes,
all the other methods of radiometric dating, even if they get rid of radiometric dating as a whole, geologists already knew that the Earth had to at least be tens of millions of years old before anyone ever thought up radiometric dating. And that's not going to change, because there's a minimum amount of time that it takes to make the rocks that you have on Earth. Because, hey, spoiler alert, lots of them are physically impossible to produce under a flood. So...
Oh my god. I'm gonna just guess that this says Herbsman Billiams in the chat says nachos or Mexican poutine.
Nice.
I would prefer to counter with poutine is just Canadian nachos, but your mileage may vary.
Although specifically it's like Quebecois nachos.
Yeah, Quebecois nachos.
Yeah.
God, now I want nachos. Damn it, chat.
I started it. It's my fault, really. Nachos are great, though. And they're so simple.
So simple.
Yeah. Thanks, Nacho. That guy who invented nachos. No, that's a real thing. The guy who invented nachos, his nickname was Nacho. And
I know, that's
it. The inventor of nachos was named Nacho.
Acting like I don't know that Nacho's a nickname.
Well, I don't know. But did you know that the guy who invented nachos, that was his nickname? Like, that's a real thing that happened. I don't know. People don't know everything.
If the Earth and universe, including stars and galaxies, are only 6,000 years old, how does one explain million or billion light years far away stars and galaxies?
Good question!
Yeah, that's an easy one. There's two options. God's a liar, or the universe isn't 6,000 years old. It is, in fact, billions of years old. Those are your options. At least as far as I can tell. Those are the only options that seem to make any sense. You can go with, like, oh, actually, geocentrism is true, in fact, but only for light, which is Jason Lyle's idea. But I'll just let that sit with you for a little while. Geocentrism is true, actually, but only for light. Just think about that for a while and get back to me.
You're an astrologer? I'm the astrologer of the group. So.
Well, that landed.
Okay.
I don't think he's an astrologer. He's also not an astronomist. Astrophotography isn't astronomy. However, as we have pointed out, in fact, Dave Reeves is a really good astrophotographer. And he should do more with that and less with this nonsense. Because, I'll be honest, if he just went all into like an astrophotography business, some of those pictures I would seriously consider getting prints of. Because he has some really good pictures. And yeah. I mean, look, I'm a big fan of giving credit where it's due. And his astrophotography is pretty good. He's also, we saw like his telescope. That thing is a beast. That looks like one of those like $20,000 telescopes or something. Like, that is incredible.
I was gonna say that thing, that whole rig that he has is easily several $1,000s.
Oh yeah, it is
easily.
Yeah, he's definitely really into that, and hey, good on him. I mean, I don't care if you're a creationist, if you're taking cool pictures of space, just keep doing it.
I really like what Jacques Plumé in the chat says. Why not be an astrologer? It's as true as what they believe.
Because they don't like it. So
I know.
There's actually a weird like relationship if you trace it through like Christian history of the relationship between astrology and Christianity, because now most Christians reject it as some kind of like pagan soothsaying thing, right? Which they're generally not big fans of. But the thing is that the idea that the heavens had some kind of direct effect on Earth was basically ubiquitous throughout the first few centuries of the Common Era, and Christians just assumed that that was the case. Now, they probably didn't spend a whole lot of time working out, like, horoscopes and whatnot. But, like, yeah, they all basically just assumed that. And then it was only later, after the first few centuries of the Common Era, that Christians started developing this general distaste for the idea of astrology in principle. And now it's basically ubiquitous in Christianity. I don't know of any Christian sect that officially endorses astrology. Pretty sure they all are either no, it's definitely not okay, or like, we don't have a strong opinion.
You can look to the ubiquity of astrology and the zodiac. In that particular era, there are synagogues in Israel, Palestine, that have the 12 constellations of zodiac literally in mosaics on the floor, so...
Yep.
Also, TD Lane says, Dapper Dinosaur, does this mean that cheeseburger fries are the transitional species between nachos and poutine?
Yes. Yes, they are. That is accurate. All right, here we go.
This is my favorite question because it is actually an issue that we do not have all of the answers for. You see,
I can't believe he was honest.
Yeah, you
Good
know what?
for you.
We'll take a drink for that. That
Good
was
for you.
true, and it's an honest answer.
Good for him. Now let's see if he undoes everything he just said.
Yep. By the way, I don't know how you guys are saying that this audio level is okay. This is like, I'm going to need hearing protection for this video. I have no idea why my sound is all wonky.
The universe is...
I'm sorry.
He would know, out of anybody on that panel, how far away the stars are. He literally takes photographs of them on a regular basis.
Good point, yeah.
You cannot square that.
Yep.
With a young Earth.
Approximately 6,000 years old, and I have taken photos of supernovae, exploding stars in galaxies that are thousands, millions of light years away. Shouldn't it have taken the light millions of years to reach the Earth? And that is...
Yes!
Wait.
Yes, it did!
Hold on, it just got super loud now? Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's happening. Everything has stayed the same for me within Discord, so... Sounds like a YouTube problem.
Maybe it is a YouTube problem. Maybe it's an OBS problem. I have no idea, guys. I just turned the video down a little bit. We'll see what happens there. I hate it. I literally changed none of my sound settings, and then suddenly everyone's like, the sound balance is off. Damn it.
Blame Canada.
Yeah.
Blame Canada.
It's Canada Day. It's all Canada's fault.
A great question. We have to remember that light years is actually a measurement of distance, not of time.
Hey,
Okay.
Vishanti, you went to school, right? That's a thing you did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, did you ever hear about the distance, speed, time triangle?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you have the speed and you have the distance, can you use those to unambiguously give you the time travel that it would take for that thing that you're measuring to go? You can?
Yes. It's almost like there's a formula called D equals RT.
Is it really, really basic, like 8th grade level algebra at like the most? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so...
D equals RT, like...
So let's see if we can figure this out.
Not hard.
If an object is 50,000 light years away, and light travels 1 year, it takes light 1 year to travel a light year, and a photon starts at the origin and then gets to you, how long was it traveling for?
50,000 years.
Wow!
Wow!
But I thought light years were a measure of distance and not of time. It's almost
I mean,
like...
It's right there in the name.
Yeah.
Light year.
My,
It's right there.
Yeah, my favorite about this is just the whole, like, well, okay, look, if you ignore everything you learned from the time you were 12 on, then yeah, who knows how long it took for the light to get here. Of course, if you don't, then, we know exactly how long well, not exactly, but within a very fine margin of error. The South... There's a picture of South on the... Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. The South Geek Unofficial. Oh, I love and hate it at the same time. For €5, says
Amazing.
Says just join the Patreon. Got a raise and wanted to share it with the one channel I adore. June was rough for me too. A light keeps the Bilbo away. It's true. A light does keep the Bilbo away. In fact, we're actually currently not in danger of a Bilbo quotation. Although I would still like for the 43 people or so who haven't hit like to do so. It would be very helpful. Oh, and for $5, Strawberry Vein says, obligatory super chat to tell Vishanti she's pretty and that Dapper lives up to his name. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
I mean, I am wearing a tie and a top hat, and although you can't see it, the monocle is there. You know, it's only on my right eye, because my right eye is the bad one. Just like my right knee is the bad one. That was fun yesterday. All right, here we go.
The distance
Test
that light
Ranger
would
says
theoretically...
that Vishanti equals Dapper plus times TD Lane. Wait,
no, divided by.
the screen divided by. It was really tiny. I need to make this screen bigger.
Yeah.
Did you see the meme that's Velociraptor equals distance raptor over time raptor?
Yes. Yes.
It's one of my favorite memes.
That was really good. Oh, Lily Chamberlain has just become a member or has been a member for 1 month. And is at the annual level. There we go. I know how to read these things. And sends a pelagic tunicate, boo, but with a Godzilla. Yay for drink. We'll take a drink.
That's a double yay for me.
I do not understand your perversity in liking pelagic tunicates.
You created
travel
them.
I did not create them. They just
I'm
exist.
just here to like them.
Ugh, so gross.
12 million miles a minute after an entire year. But here's the thing that we have to remember, okay? When we talk about the distant starlight problem, which we freely admit, what we don't talk about is that the secular astronomer has a distant starlight time problem. That's right.
Okay, let's say that that's true. It still precludes your entire worldview, my guy. So, I love that we're just going right into, like, TooManyDemons land, right? So for those
I was literally about to say him, what's his name? Reeves? David Reeves?
Dave Reeves, yeah.
David Reeves just hit him with the I am rubber, you are glue.
Yeah. So, for those of you who might not know, TooManyDemons is a logical fallacy in which, upon being accused of something, you simply throw the...
you're doing it too.
Yeah, you simply throw the accusation back, right? So if someone says, hey, you just lied to me. And you're like, well, you lied to me 5 years ago when you said that you were going to come pick me up at 3 p.m. and instead you didn't arrive till 4. It's like, be that as it may, you still just lied. Doesn't help, even if it's true.
The topic is young Earth creationist light year problem.
Right, not anyone else light year problem.
The topic is not secular scientist having a distance of light problem. That's not the topic here, David.
Also, Dr. Dino, which is spelled kind of like it's German, says, ahoy, mateys, been stumped by any cues yet? Not so far, I would say.
Is that paleo art? Because if it is, it looks good.
It is, in fact, a theropod dressed in a lab coat, like a doctor.
I appreciate that.
Yes. Actually, Dr. Dino here recently put together a little, a short video, not a YouTube short, but just a relatively short video that was some clips from my debate with Kent Hovind, and memed him up a little bit. It was amusing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's got the part where I ask Kent Hovind what a dinosaur is, but, you know, I ask him in a slightly more technical way so that he's not just going to say, well, of course I do. Instead, he just admits to not knowing what a dinosaur is, because, of course, the guy who's been going by Dr. Dino for decades never bothered to look into what a dinosaur is in the first place. Nope.
I can't believe you didn't send me the link to that video.
I will.
SMH.
Sorry. Mark Smith, who's been a member for 6 months and at the tetrapod level, says Vishanti is right. Pelagic tunicates are the best, which is just horribly inaccurate. But
Correct.
there's a Ghidorah in there, or Ghidorah, or however you'd like to say it. The dubs differ. So we'll take a drink and we'll continue on.
14 billion years is not sufficient
Dr.
time
Dino's a
for
Deinonychus.
Oh, that makes sense.
light
Neat.
to transmit from one side of the universe to the other. And the secular astronomer is actually, it's called the horizon problem. And what they've done to try.
This is true. We'll take a drink. This is an actual thing that is a largely solved, but it was a problem in cosmology.
Question.
Yes.
Are we real confident about how fast light travels?
Extremely confident.
So, why does he think that the speed of light and the distance to stars is a problem for anybody who does any kind of astronomy?
Well, because it often is.
Because he wants it to be a problem.
Well, he wants it to be a problem for the quote-unquote secular scientists, by which he just means scientists who...
Scientists.
Yeah, scientists. People who do science the way that science is done, and not by looking at one book and deciding that it's going to dictate what you're allowed to believe about science. Yeah. But also, it's not really a problem at this point, because cosmogenic models, right, have taken this into account. And now, it's still an open question as exactly how all of this shook out, why the universe behaved exactly the way it did. We don't have all the answers yet. But, I'll just say this.
You don't know everything, you don't know anything, I
Yeah.
guess. To sum it up.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, because basically what this is saying is, the microwave background radiation, right? It's basically this echo of the moment that the universe became cool enough for light to decouple from matter, and therefore the universe became transparent. Basically, the mean free path length of light went from, like, angstroms to light years in, like, an instant. The South Geek unofficial for €2 says it's called the Astro Monster. Dapper, duh. My apologies. It is called. It's also sometimes called Monster Zero. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Monster Zero is a good designation.
Dapper Dino drops a bomb in Hoven. Oh, I'm clicking that link. I'm gonna bookmark this for later.
Yes, it's pretty good. Lost my train of thought. Right. So let's say that this is.
I'm sorry, Dr. Dino. I had to ruin your nice number of subscribers.
Oh, are you the 70th subscriber?
Sorry.
How dare you? How very dare.
But now they have a frick. Why did words just evaporate from my brain?
Not enough coffee.
I don't like this. I do not like it.
Sorry.
We have a Sanhedrin number of subscribers now.
There you go. Yeah. Or enough subscribers to translate the entirety of the Tanakh into, the entirety of the Torah into Greek, from Hebrew, while everyone is working on their own and coming up with the exact same copy independently. That's
70 identical manuscripts. That's definitely happened.
That's how you know the Septuagint is from God. That is.
And Shock Polymer, in an answer to your question, the universe is so old. How old is it? Old as balls.
There you go. So yeah, anyway, what I was trying to get to was, even if this is a completely unsolved, completely unaddressed problem in cosmology, right? The extreme isotropy of the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is what he's talking about. Okay, that still doesn't let you get away with just hand-waving something that absolutely, completely precludes everything you say about cosmology, right? What the isotropy of the microwave background radiation says is, hey, there's some stuff about the first few million years after the initial expansion from the Big Bang that isn't well understood. Oh, okay, cool. That's something to look into. That's research to be done. What the distant starlight problem does for young Earth creationism is say, hey, either God's a liar and you can't trust the Bible, or the universe is older than your interpretation of the Bible says it is, and I'll let what that means for the Bible be something you wrestle with. So,
try to patch this problem up is they call it inflation, which states that magically...
No, it doesn't state magically. We'll just take a drink.
It doesn't state magically.
Imagine being the actual young Earth creationist who thinks that literal miracles are what created the universe, and then complaining when you think someone else is using magic in their explanation.
r/self-aware wolves.
Mm-hmm. I reiterate my stance that creationists should, instead of continuing to do pseudoscience, just open up movie theaters.
Call it miracles. Yeah, just say it's miracles. You took a huge burden off of yourself.
But also, they really should open up movie theaters because they're all expert projectors.
Yeah.
Just a few nanoseconds after the Big Bang 14 billion years ago, all matter in the universe began expanding rapidly faster than the speed of light.
No, space expanded faster than the speed of light.
Goodness
Space
gracious.
can do that. Matter can't. Dr. Dino for $5 says, feel free to play the meme if you go on a break later. If you want, it's basically fan art of your work anyway. I would consider that, but it would take a lot of behind-the-scenes work that would just extend the break considerably. So, unfortunately, because I don't currently have it added in as a file that I can just easily play, yeah, it would require me to basically go download it, add it as a media file, make sure it's in the right scene, size it correctly, get the audio levels right, which apparently is going to be a lie anyway, because apparently audio levels are nonsense today. And yeah, it's...
I'm just having so many issues with David Reeves here. I agree with the chat, by the way. They're saying, like, hey, how can people who literally believe in magic call physics magic?
Yeah. Well, he's just going back to the tu quoque. It's like, oh, you think it's bad that I believe in magic? Well, I say you believe in magic. Okay, even if it were true, that doesn't help, but it's not true.
Trying to hit him with the Uno reverse card.
Yeah. Pibblepunk for $2 says, the Bible literally describes how to cast spells. Yeah, at least in the broad sense, it does. Yeah, like, if the only way to say that the Bible doesn't is if you carve a special pleading caveat out for the Bible and say that the practices that are essentially identical, that are considered magical practices elsewhere in the ancient Near East, count as casting spells and magic. But the aspects of that described in the New Testament, or not the New Testament, the Bible, in, like the Torah or later on, those don't count because they're from God. Well, that's just special pleading. Yeah. I mean, the Bible has recipes for potions. It has curses and things that can be laid upon, blessings to be given. Wards. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's full of things that in any other context, everyone will recognize as magical. So.
And it's almost like other cultures were doing that in that same region at the same time.
I mean, cultures are still doing that.
Yeah.
Mark Smith for $5 says, I'm going to say Kenthoven to avoid breaking my PG-13 rule, but I do appreciate you swapping out the E for a U. Kenthoven doesn't use logical fallacies. He uses illogical fallacies. And of course, illogical fallacies is spelled with a PH. Which, yes, this is true. All right, here we go.
And then magically slowed down to its current linear expansion rate. It
was not magic.
It was not magic, and we'll take a drink for that, and we'll also take a drink for, it's not currently linear. It's in fact accelerating exponentially. So, way to get everything wrong, David Reeves. And so here's 2 drinks. 1, 2. You could get something right if you wanted to.
Some point. Now, they don't have a mechanism for what would cause it to go faster than the speed of light. They don't have...
Oh, fun! Do you have a mechanism for how God created everything out of nothing? Nope. So again...
Does it rhyme with tragic, which is what this Q&A session is?
Yeah. So once again, he's just doubling down on the tu quoque. Everything that he's accusing science of, most of which isn't true, by the way, is definitively true of creationism. And he doesn't seem to see a problem with that.
Have a mechanism on what would cause it to stop expanding so quickly. So if 14 billion years isn't enough time to get light from one side of the universe to the other, I'll admit 6,000 years sounds pretty challenging, but I have a lot of good friends. Dr. Russ Humphreys' gravitational time dilation states that gravity affects time. In other
He's right about that, but I've already taken a look at Dr. Humphreys' the universe started in a white hole and the Earth was the last thing to emerge from the white hole idea. Yeah.
What? You know what? Don't even try to explain it. That's just too dumb.
There's a reason that I titled that video in which we went over it, "We watched the dumbest creationist video ever." It is almost incomprehensibly dumb. And I say that in a very technical sense, right? I'm not currently convinced that everything that Humphrey says constitutes actual thoughts, right? It's kind of like reading a book written by Ramat.
Ugh.
Yeah. It's like, I know that those are words. I know that you've arranged them into an order. However, I am not sure that those words in that order constitute coherent thought.
Yeah, they're not communicating coherent ideas.
Yeah. My favorite thing, though, with Ramat is when he has an entire sentence that's just an isolated noun phrase. It'll just be like, evolution, comma, the theory that the evil atheists propose, or not, the theory of the evil atheists, period. Next sentence. It's like, that's not a sentence, Matt. Evolution, comma, the theory of the atheists, period.
He must have gone to school with Armando Calvo.
You know, they do seem similar, although I think Matt's Canadian.
Doesn't mean they didn't go to the same school.
I guess, but it does make it less likely, because Armando is definitely American. He's joining the U.S. Army, and I think they're going to beat that.
Sure he is.
Well, okay.
Sure he is.
I don't have good reason to think he's lying about joining the Army. It's not normally something someone lies about. Usually they lie about having already been in the Army. Very few people are like, I'm joining the Army, and then that's a lie.
Listen, when he disappears for the length of time it would take to go through basic, I will believe him then.
Okay, fair enough.
If he actually does not wash out, I will be gobsmacked.
Yeah, he does seem like the kind of guy who would wash out. Yeah.
Dude has like oppositional defiant disorder or something. Like he's not gonna make it in the Army.
Yeah.
Because they'll take you if you're dumb, but they're not gonna take you if you can't follow instructions.
That's the key. Yeah. All right, we're gonna play. We're gonna get a little bit more of this in, and then we're gonna take, once Dave Reeves is done with his question, we're gonna take a quick break.
Words, if we are anywhere near the center of this universe,
there is no center to the universe.
And we're not. Oh my gosh.
You can't have a center of something that doesn't have a center.
We may be in a gravitational well where time travels at a different rate than it does farther out in the universe.
Hey, cool thing. In order for the... So a white hole, which is what Humphreys thinks the universe came out of, has essentially infinite positive curvature of space-time, which should mean actually that time is flowing infinitely fast, not the opposite, which is what happens when you have essentially infinite negative curvature of space-time. The whole thing just doesn't work out very well.
That's a potential way to solve this problem. I have another good friend.
Light could be traveling at a different speed if we're the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're in a gravitational well.
Yeah, which, I mean, we are, but we're not in one that would, freeze time on Earth, but not in the rest of the universe. Because that would just be a black hole. And you can't just escape from a black hole. I guess you could via magic.
The name of Dr. Danny
photons, it's not that they slow down. It's just that the path that they're traveling becomes like infinitely curved. It's never going to loop back around to you unless it's not cross the event horizon. Then it kind of gets slingshotted away. It's like, why does none of this is making any sense? I'm taking psychic damage right now.
Well, yeah.
Faulkner, he has his PhD in astronomy, and he says that, there's actually a passage in Genesis that talks about Dasha multiple times, a rapid maturing. So could God...
Where? What?
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, I've never heard of this. This sounds like it's made up. Also, Danny Faulkner has a book about why Christians shouldn't believe in the flat earth. Because, of course, the same kind of people who were taken in by young earth creationism are more likely to be flat earthers. And so, in the last decade or so, AIG and ICR and whatnot have been having to contend with flat earthers, who are, let me be clear,
good.
All they're doing is more consistently applying the hermeneutical principles that AIG and CMI and all these other guys accept. They're saying, okay, if we
Read
should
the
take
Bible literally.
Yeah.
No, not like that.
Right, exactly. Hey, we're just taking the Bible at its word. That's true. They are.
Not have created the universe and then rapidly matured it or
I'm with
stretched
Sarazawa on this one. Let them fight.
Oh, I think it's hilarious when the young Earth creationists and the flat earthers who... Well, okay. When the young Earth creationists who aren't flat earthers and the young Earth creationists who are, because let's be honest, that Venn diagram is one circle inside of a larger circle.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of room for the flat earthers who aren't also young Earth creationists in some way. Yeah, when they fight, it's just hilarious to me because the creationists will produce arguments that are, well, non-flat Earth creationists will produce actually decent arguments, in the case of Faulkner at least, about why the Earth can't be flat. And they'll base it on things like the data. And they'll say, see, we know that this can't be true, so we know that your interpretation of the Bible is the wrong one, because it contradicts reality. Oh, so when the scientific data say that your interpretation of the Bible is wrong, maybe you should change your interpretation of the Bible? Is that what you're saying, Danny Faulkner? Is that what you're going for? Interesting.
It's special pleading all the way down.
It really is. Oh, man. Yeah. It's pretty great. You can also find the same thing occasionally with creationist astronomers who are trying to argue against geocentrism, because you still get some geocentrist globe Earth creationists. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
it out. Potentially that might solve the starlight and time problem. And then another good friend, Dr. Jason Lau, PhD in astrophysics from the University of Boulder, he has another convention, not really a theory, but it's a convention that states that anisotropic light synchrony convention. So
yeah, that's just geocentrism, but
I
only
just
for
said
light.
a bunch of words.
Yeah. So, real quick, it is in fact the case that the isotropic speed of light, which is the idea that light travels in the same speed in all directions, is a mathematical convention. You don't have to use it. The math will work in other conventions. However, when you posit that basically everything that we know from all of the other sciences, like geology, might just be wrong because you think the Earth is the center of the universe, but only for light, the only thing I can say is that's a whole lot of special pleading, and there is no reason anyone should listen to you about that. Can I prove you wrong?
Says, lol, CU Boulder, they give a PhD to anyone.
I mean, I don't know personally, but that might be true.
a big word, but basically it means we don't know what the one-way speed of light is. Maybe we're actually seeing the distant parts of the universe in near real time, and there is no way, based on Einstein's theory of relativity, to determine what the truth is on that.
Yeah, but you know, Jason Lyle gave a proxy option for testing his hypothesis, which was to say, if very distant galaxies actually look like they're relatively young according to cosmological models, that would be a pretty effective defeater to his idea that just because we can't know the one-way speed of light, that it means that we're not glancing into the past as we look into the distance. And yeah, distant galaxies do look younger.
My brain just fractured in several places. I'm pretty sure when he's saying, yeah, we might be seeing our distant places of the universe as they are right now, then bro, there's no speed of light.
Well, there's a two-way speed of light. See, they see us twice as old or twice as young as we should be, according to the isotropic speed of light. So if you were in Andromeda, and Andromeda is like, what is it, like, how far away is Andromeda? Let's find out. Let's see. Yeah, 2.5 million light years is what we're going to go with. So you see, you see Andromeda right now as it is, but they have still almost 2.5 million years to go until our light even reaches them in the first place. Because when they finally get our light, it won't be until they're 5 million years in the future.
No.
Yeah, it's a little silly.
Knowing what we know about how long it takes light to get places just within our little instance of, space-time, that's complete horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
just gonna put that out there. I'm just gonna call it horseshit until they do the work to demonstrate that it's not.
Oh no, see, that's the convenient thing. There's no work that's possible to do to confirm or disconfirm that.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, really handy.
Here's what I'm telling you. The secular astronomers have a distant starlight and time problem, which they have fixed with a supernatural, magical component.
No, they did not.
They did
Stop
not.
lying, Dave. Oh my goodness.
Taking a drink.
It's not
I don't
magic,
think I
it's
really have that
physics.
big of an issue.
Even if that were true,
You
you still would have the same issue.
What you do?
Just say, haha, I use the tu quoque fallacy. Take that, atheists. Oh, okay.
Haha, they've got a problem that I don't have, Mr. I think everything is younger than 10,000 years, even though I'm seeing stuff millions of light years away.
Mm-hmm.
God
Hey.
knows how he did it,
All right,
and we'll
David.
find out one day.
Awesome. Thank
And he
you.
lied to us about how he
All right.
did it if you take the Bible literally. Good job.
Yeah, but hey, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get some more ice and refresh my drink, and we will be back in just a few minutes. In the meantime, I hope that you enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind, who is, the primary musician for the channel. So, we will be back in just a few minutes.
Artist in residence.
And we are back after a minor technical problem. We're back once again. Now, before we get back into it, I just want to say, first of all, thank you everyone who is here. Thank you for all the people who were super chatting. Thank you to, let me make sure I get it right as to who gave the gift memberships. That was Too Young to Feel This Old, who gifted 5 gift memberships. Thank you very much. I want to say that this channel is held together almost entirely through the direct support of viewers, right? We're kind of like PBS. There's a little bit of extra money that comes in here and there. In this case, not from the federal government that I know of, except for the USGS shill money, obviously, right? That doesn't count, though. And so I really appreciate how much support everyone is giving me. And if you are someone who is currently thinking about supporting the channel, and you are currently not doing so, there's a number of great ways to do so. One of them, probably the most cost-effective one for both you and me, is Patreon, where you can join for as little as $1 a month, or you can get a 10 or 12% discount for going annual with your pledge. That gets you access to months and months worth of early access videos. It gets you into the Discord server. It can get you additional perks if you go higher up. Like at $5, it'll be in the credits. At 10, you can start downloading some of my Blender assets that I've uploaded to Patreon. At 20, you will hear your name in the end credits. You can go all the way up to 100 if you want to, if you're feeling super generous. There's also the channel memberships, which give you a similar, it's basically the same things, although it only goes, I think, up to 20. I don't think that I have a $50 or $100 tier on YouTube. But also gives you access to the Discord. It puts your names in the credit at $5 or above. It's all the same things. Early access to all the videos, access to the Discord. But it also gives you a cool little badge next to your name. Turns your name green if you're not a mod. If you are a mod, you still get the badge, but your name stays blue. And also, it gives you access to all the cool channel emojis. And that's also something that can be gifted to you. So we have that option too, is if you get the gift, you can then be a member for, I think it's the 30-day gift is what it is. But if a annual or a monthly thing isn't your deal, but you still want to support, there's other options. We have a merch store where you can get t-shirts, stickers, blankets, pillows, all sorts of stuff. The mugs, don't forget mugs. And if there's also a wish list that's just for me, and also Vishanti has a wish list linked in the description. So if you feel like doing that. And ultimately, if you don't want to or you can't afford to support financially in any way, that's fine too. I definitely do not want money that you cannot afford. Simply hit like, leave comments on my videos, share my videos, and importantly, watch more than one video of mine in a row, if you can. All of those can help boost the channel in the algorithm. My last video is doing just great. However, views in June were a bit rough. So any help there would be much appreciated. Now that we've gotten that little commercial thing out of the way, let's hear the next question.
Right. What is the leading proof that dinosaurs lived recently?
I mean, you can go outside and look at dinosaurs. That's it. Just go outside. I see dinosaurs pretty much every day, I think. It's been a very long time since I went a day without seeing a dinosaur. Besides myself, obviously.
Wearing evidence that dinosaurs live today, right now.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Every feather that ever existed was a dinosaur feather.
That sounds like what you got up on the screen.
Yeah, I think what I left up on the screen, I think for me it would be dinosaur taphonomy. If the dinosaurs were just buried in mud, that would be one thing, but they're...
Which again, they're not all buried in mud. But okay, some of them are buried in ash or sand or silt. Lots of things besides mudstone.
Buried in a composite of mud, sand, and ash. And the theory of catastrophic plate tectonics,
which would melt the dinosaurs into a pool of plasma. We're just going to take a drink as to how dumb that is. Okay.
Have you tried making dinosaur fossils out of plasma?
I have not. I suspect strongly that it wouldn't work. Paleologos, which, by the way, welcome, says pterosaur feathers. So I actually am not willing to go as far as to say that pterosaur picked no fibers. are feathers. Now, they might count as proto-feathers if this filamentous integument is basal to Archosauria, or not Archosauria, Ornithodira as a whole. But I'm not convinced that that's the case. I actually do think it's probably more likely than not. But that would still ultimately end up being proto-feathers. And I do think that there is some value in restricting the word feather to things that are at least very similar to modern feather types, like phyloplumes or contour feathers, predaceous feathers, and whatnot. I'm actually not a huge fan of calling every kind of fuzzy integument on a dinosaur a feather. Because for one thing, I think it's a little bit misleading to the public, right? If you're like, oh, this is a feathered dinosaur, and you show them like a picture or something, and it's got these like weird little like porcupine quill things coming out of its tail, and that's what you got. It's like, that's not what people are expecting when you say this is a feathered dinosaur. They expect feathers like you find on a bird. So for that reason, I'm a little bit iffy about using the word feather as opposed to proto-feather for things like Eutyrannus or Culindrodromeus or pterosaurs for that matter. Now, I recognize I have absolutely no control over this discourse, and that both the public and paleontologists are going to do what they want. And if it becomes the standard view that pycnofibers are in fact homologous to bird feathers, and we're just going to drop the term proto-feather in large part, then I guess I'll just go along with it. I hope that rather long-winded thing answers your two-word question. Strawberry Vein for $5 says, Dapper's videos are like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one. I do try to make them that way, yes. It's often why I leave off with like, hey, we'll hear what he says about this next time. Watch the next video, everybody.
Just leave them wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
The leading flood theory shows that they're buried in a matrix that the theory says that they should be buried in, because we have volcanism and tsunamis, and those are the two mechanisms that are going to bury those dinosaurs in stratified layers all together, and it's going to have hit them so suddenly we're going to find them buried in herds and buried all mixed up, and that's exactly what we find.
It's what we find sometimes.
Are most fossils in tsunamite?
Actually, no, virtually none are. As it turns out.
Huh.
Weird.
Huh.
We'll take a drink for that, actually. Yep. In fact, fossils are much more common in rock that could not be laid down rapidly in a catastrophic sense. Like silt or other such things. Now, benthic tunicate B2022 has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Crypto 457, Dragon Spartan 90 official, Vesta Freya, The Fallen, and am I missing someone? Oh, and Christopher Kennedy Atheist. Welcome to the channel memberships, everybody.
Pelagic tunicates in, folks.
No, sessile tunicates or tetrapods only. See, benthic tunicates got it right. Vishanti, April Van Ryn, you guys are everybody. No, stop it.
Right.
Everyone's doing it wrong. What? Don't listen to her just because she has feathers on. Guys are ruining the channel. Ruining the channel.
97% of the dinosaur fossil record is disarticulated, meaning they got hit so fast with something that they didn't have time to deal with it. They're all.
Okay, I'm gonna take.
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna take a big old drink, and then we're gonna talk about disarticulation in the fossil record.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Something is fishy.
Yeah. Okay. So, is the vast majority of the dinosaur fossil record disarticulated? Yes, it is. That's absolutely true. However, there's this thing that you might have heard of. It happens to animals after they die, and it's called decomposition. I don't know. Have you heard of this, Vishanti?
I think you're making those words up.
Okay. Well, I will describe it, and maybe you'll have heard of it, right? So,
okay.
Because after it's dead, obviously, the animal's immune system is no longer functioning, and it can no longer resist being eaten by anything.
Okay.
Various bacteria, fungi, animals will all start to eat the various tissues of the animal. Now, the tissues that they have the hardest time eating are the mineralized parts, like bones and teeth, because those are largely devoid of they're largely devoid of calories. There are animals and plant and fungi and whatnot that can do it, but those are the last bits. Which means that over the course of the decomposition of an animal, you will start with the entire corpse, and then at some point, you will be left with just the bones. Now, you also might not know this about bones, but they are generally not in direct contact with each other at the joints. In fact,
that I know.
When that happens, it's usually a pretty big medical problem. And in
it's
humans,
also painful.
Yeah, extremely painful. It's the kind of reason that humans get artificial joints installed, right? Like, oh, hey, I need a new hip or a new knee. Why? Oh, because your bones were scraping together.
My bones are grinding together. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel nice.
Mm-mm. So, when all of the non-bone tissue decays away, what's holding the bones together?
Would that be nothing?
That would be nothing. Yes, that is in fact how that works. So all that has to happen for disarticulation to happen is for an animal to decay. Now, here's another problem. We have numerous dinosaur bones, and other bones too, with scavenge marks, including from the mighty T-Rex.
I've seen them.
Now, if, as Dan is proposing, the only way to get disarticulated fossils is for a tsunami to hit a dinosaur so hard it flies apart into thousands of pieces. Which, again, not how tsunamis work, by the way. But that's his contention. If that's how it worked...
Blows them up like a bunch of Legos.
Seriously. How did those scavenge marks get there? What was scavenging them? The T-Rex that's also been blown apart like a Lego collection? I don't know. So we're just going to take a drink for all of this, because all of it is extremely dumb. Imagine thinking that animals are blown apart by tsunamis. Oh, man.
Wow.
Scrambled up, as we mentioned, with some of their femurs even split lengthwise. But for me, the clincher, I think, even when I speak at colleges, I say, look, it's not me as a creationist that has the issue with dinosaurs or dinosaur evolution. I turn the pages and say, actually, you guys, the evolutionists, have the biggest problems because there's two things that are existing at the same time. Their current science books, secular science books, say that collagen is a soft product that has a half-life and a known shelf life. It should decay, all of it. Some scientists say 10 to 30,000 years. Some scientists say 100,000 years. And some scientists will stretch it all the way up to 300,000 to 900,000 years, basically if you put it in a pristine burial situation. But in all situations, these dinosaurs, especially the ones in the Cretaceous, the topmost layers, they have collagen preserved in their bones.
Now that's an interesting question. Do they have intact collagen? Is what you're finding collagen? The answer is no. It is in fact...
Also...
Oh, sorry.
He started out by going, actually, it's you that has the problem.
Yeah, there is that. So
before he even got to, oh yeah, there's definitely collagen. It's not degraded at all. It's just there.
Let's make like an analogy, right? Let's say that you bought some oranges, right? And then you live out near like where I live, right? Out in the desert. It's hot and it's dry. And one of your oranges spills out of your shopping bag and it rolls into your yard or garden or whatever, right? Then a few months later, you find a dried, blackened, round husk. Was once your orange. Your orange has been preserved. Is it chemically identical to the orange that it was?
Yeah.
Is it? I feel like it's going to be missing a bunch of water. It's oxidized a whole bunch.
Well, if you're a creationist, they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's still an orange.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So what we're finding is not...
when you dehydrate stuff, you get rid of the water. So
yeah, it's now dehydrated. It's completely oxidized. It has, in fact, it has not retained the chemical nature of being an orange. However, when you look at it, you're like, hey, this is the residue of an orange. The collagen found in dinosaur bones is not collagen. It is broken up. It's cross-linked with iron to help, which is one of the reasons it's been preserved extra long, right? But it is not simply a bunch of collagen. There are no reports of intact collagen in dinosaurs, with the exception of Mark Armitage, who probably found a bison horn and not a triceratops horn. Why do I say this? It's morphologically his horn It's morphologically compatible with bison latifrons. The rib that he found is actually more compatible with an identification of B. latifrons than it is with Triceratops. He did not provide adequate documentation as to where he found his find.
Uh-oh.
And he insufficiently documented the horn itself in his paper before breaking it into pieces and dissolving some of it completely in acid.
Wow, that sure is a thing he did.
Yeah, there's a reason that he published this in Acta Histochemica, a microscopy journal, rather than, say, a biology or a paleontology journal. And you know what?
Oh, boy.
I'm sure his microscopy is spot on.
Oh,
Benthic Tunicate
Okay.
B2022 for £5 says, AIG are a turbid troop of tubular tendrils on a trampoline. That's what we like to see. Not only is AIG a bag of dicks, but in alliteration.
yep. Appreciate that. That's art.
Very good. All right, here we go.
And current secular science says we only have mechanisms to say it should only last about 100,000 years.
Cool. It probably didn't last much longer than that because it's not collagen anymore.
So they currently have no answer why that product is still found in dinosaur bones.
That's a lie, actually. We know some of the mechanisms. For instance, iron preservation. Where's all that? Sorry, got a little cough there. Where's all that iron coming from? Mostly blood. Blood has a lot of iron in it. That's why it's red. Unless, of course, you're like a horseshoe crab or something, in which case you get a lot of copper. But we're not talking about horseshoe crabs. We're talking about dinosaurs.
Does that mean Mars is made of blood?
Yes.
Awesome.
But to us, we have no problem whatsoever. It doesn't surprise me that dinosaurs still have
But you
16 fresh
do.
bioorganic materials in them because they were recently buried about 4,500 years ago in a flood.
Okay, but
No,
here's...
hey, Dapper,
Oh, go ahead.
are they intact?
No, actually.
Are they fresh?
No, they're not.
That's a lie.
Yeah. Also, Strawberry Vein for $5 says, generally, never trust anyone who dissolves evidence in acid. So look, destructive testing is a real thing that happens in science, and you need to do destructive testing in some cases. However, what you're supposed to do is adequately document whatever you're about to destructively test before you do the destructive test. That's the important step that he missed out on. Because look,
It'd also be nice if you didn't destroy the entire sample before you
so
test it.
whether or not he destroyed the entire horn is actually currently kind of open. I don't think he's stated either way, and he certainly destroyed some of it. But I have not seen like any pictures of it after being fractioned and then some of it dissolved. So yeah, it's a little iffy. But here's another thing. If dinosaurs died no more recently than, say, mammoths did, which is something that creationists believe, right? Like they think, oh, dinosaurs survived into historical times. That's why we have dragon legends. Why are there no frozen dinosaurs in the tundra? Why is it that when we find dinosaur bones, they're always much more thoroughly permineralized than, say, the subfossils of the Pleistocene? Why don't we find actual mummified dinosaur skin all the time like we do for more recent things? Why aren't there examples like we have of mummified cave bears or giant ground sloths that have been preserved in relatively cool, dry caves? Why don't we have those examples for, say, baryonyx?
I was assured by Kent Hovind that you could go into the tundra right now and chainsaw yourself out a fresh mammoth burger.
Well, if by fresh you mean incredibly freezer burned, then technically you could.
And, lizards don't do well in the cold, so...
oh, right.
Therefore, Earth young.
Yeah, except that, dinosaurs aren't lizards, and some of them were warm-blooded, and the ones who weren't were probably all mesothermic, so,
Yeah, well, reasons.
Yeah. Crypto457 says they probably also think that the ground sloths are dinosaurs. I wouldn't put it past them. Because I do know some of them know what a dinosaur is, but many of them don't. So yeah, to be fair, most of the ones who do paleontology do know that ground sloths are not dinosaurs.
Yeah. Alex Markel laughs in Penguin, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Queen Necra the second says random drunk thought arriving here with a mixture of the 75 days of Sal being bitch made and Shanti showing off glorious feeders. I'm jelly officially. Beats any yuck argument by light years of distance.
Nice.
Cleverly worded.
All right.
In fact, it's even still surprising to me after 4,500 years that we could still find soft, pliable bioorganics in dinosaurs even after that long.
Is that what we find, though?
Well, after a solid 2-week acid bath, we find some soft, pliable stuff.
So then the answer is no.
No, not really. Here's a cool thing about acid. Strong acids can turn lots of things soft and pliable after soaking that thing in them for 2 months or 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah.
Turns out that's kind of what acid does. It tends to make things soft and pliable. Yeah.
Yep.
Don't go test this on yourself though.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah.
Please.
So I think for me, the clincher would be dinosaur soft tissues, and ICR happens to have I think the leading expert in the world on it, Dr. Brian Thomas. He's a
Brian Thomas. This is the man who told me, I suppose not directly to my face, but who did in fact inform me that birds aren't dinosaurs, and one of the ways you can tell is that they have closed acetabula or hip sockets. That's just a flat out lie. And literally all you have to do to figure that out is look at a bird hip. That's it. Just take a bird pelvis. Any bird pelvis. It can be a little songbird, can be a big old ostrich, can be an even bigger extinct moa. I don't really care. They all have open acetabula, which is one of the things he cited as making a dinosaur. And then he just said, yeah, birds don't have that though. Except, yeah, they all do.
This is giving big Pega-style energy.
So, when Brian Thomas says things, I have to keep in mind that he is a known liar, and that anything that he says needs to be fact-checked, because him saying it is just as good as him not saying it. Because when a known liar says something is true, that's not a good reason to believe it. Now, would it be true?
We evolved from African Americans monger, quote, leading expert in the world. That does it. Everyone check every square in your bingo sheets. I'm done.
Yeah, you know what? We'll take a drink for that too. Brian Thomas, the world's leading expert on dinosaur soft tissue. No. Bentham Tunicate B2022 says for 5 pounds, Yek Honesty must be soaked in strong acid for a couple of weeks. Then, put that honesty bone inside some acid for a couple of weeks, and it's flexible enough to be a young Earth creationist. It's a great trick.
His PhD's in paleobiochemistry. Did I get that right? From Liverpool. And Brian knows what he's talking about, and he's got heaps and heaps and heaps of evidence and all kinds of papers that he's done on it. So for me, it really is a case closed issue, and most evolutionists that have studied this admit it, that they're having to try to come up with rescuing devices to try to desperately save the idea that dinosaurs are 65 million years old.
Okay, first of all, Nasty Hobbits just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Just Me, Queen Necro II, Rusty Longshanks, Finn, and Wayne Gaffney. So I'm going to say a quick few words, and then we're going to take our 5 drinks. Except, no, I just forgot what he was talking about, so I'm going to hit play real quick.
Because the scientific data doesn't support it.
Okay, I'm going to rewind a second.
That they're having to try to come up with rescue
devices. That's what I was going to talk about. Okay, so creationists like to call the reasons their objections aren't problems rescue devices. Whenever a creationist says that's just a rescue device, all that means is, yes, I understand that this is not a problem for science, but I want to pretend that it is anyway. That's it. Saying something is a rescue device doesn't tell you anything about whether or not it's true. It doesn't tell you anything about the motive of the people who came up with the idea or who discovered the fact or whatever, right? So when I say, oh, hey, there are known limitations to radiocarbon dating that mean that we will get anomalous results in known circumstances, and therefore we should not trust those dates, nor should we submit such samples for radiocarbon dating. Well, that's just a rescue device. No, that's just a fact. It's just a fact. And it means that you complaining about a snail from the side of a road being carbon dated older than it actually is isn't a problem. Because all you're doing is saying, hey, in cases where we know radiocarbon dating doesn't work, radiocarbon dating doesn't work. Great. Cool. I don't care. So yeah, every time a creationist uses the word rescue device, all they mean is, I acknowledge that this is not a problem, but I want to continue pretending it is anyway. So let's take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Reverend Howell says, I'd need at least 2 weeks on acid to believe young creationism. Man, if you spent 2 weeks on acid, you'd probably believe a lot of stuff. That's a long time to be on acid.
Devices to try to desperately save the idea that dinosaurs are 65 million years old.
I mean, the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago. Many dinosaurs are, like a day old because they just hatched. Because fun fact, dinosaurs hatch every day.
Because the scientific data doesn't support it.
Thank you. Can you provide an example of CET and how it applies to humans, part 1? And can the cavefish who appeared to lose their eyesight regain it?
Ooh, where are the eyes? Someone asked our question.
Where are the eyes?
I love this.
Incredible.
I love that someone actually asked our question. But our answer, can you show continuous environmental tracking in humans? No, because what continuous environmental tracking is still not clear. Randy had an entire talk that we went over in multiple parts, and at no part was he actually clear enough about his idea of continuous environmental tracking that we could figure out what it meant. Did it mean that the organisms were inducing mutations? Maybe. Did it mean that it was all epigenetic? Maybe. We don't know. That's the thing about continuous environmental tracking. It's not just that it's dumb to reject natural selection, which is an obvious and very easily observable phenomenon. What's worse, for me at least, is that there isn't actually an idea behind continuous environmental tracking. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And by that, I mean it in the very strict literal sense. The idea is nonsensical. There isn't actually a technical idea there, right? It's like if I said, hey, Vishanti, did you know that all shot glasses can bake purple into piano? That doesn't mean anything. Those are words
Jello.
I could say. Right. Those are words I could say, but that doesn't convey a thought. Nothing about that makes sense.
I would probably reply, did you just have a stroke?
Yeah, basically. Which is a good response, because if I said something that nonsensical, that would be a valid concern.
Yeah, I would be very concerned.
Yeah.
Dr. G.
Well, I was wondering if...
TD Lane says continuous environmental tracking equals ad hoc copium.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, until it gets at least some kind of mechanism, that's the most generous thing I can say about it.
Answered every one of your questions about adaptation.
You gave answers, but were they the correct ones?
No. Did they make sense? Also, no.
You just thoroughly educated in all of that. 2 questions. CET in regards to humans. Yes, there are...
Wayne Rossi for $2 says, does Godzilla exhibit CET? I would actually argue that Shin Godzilla does.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely Shin Godzilla does.
So we'll take a drink because there's also a Godzilla emoji in there. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Shin Godzilla, after this, at some point, go watch Shin Godzilla. It's so good.
It was good.
Yeah.
When he was just a big old little guy, just wiggling through the sea, like, big old eyes.
Big old googly eyes.
Big old googly eyes.
Yeah. And then, of course...
giant creatures should have googly eyes.
And then, of course, in the giant action scene at the climax of the film, they were like, you know what? We could do a conventional Hollywood-style action score, or we could go on full operatic. And that's what they did. And it was just perfect. It was mwah, chef's kiss.
Yes. Beautiful.
It was It's one of my favorite ever Godzilla movies, is what I'm saying here. It's really good. Anyway, Dr. Dino for $5 says, hearing about sea dating methods reminds me of a review I did for Kurt Wise. Creationist with a Harvard PhD, a student of S.J. Gould, said carbon-14 can date coal.
Oh.
Pain. Yeah, no, that is intensely painful. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's... I forget that Kurt Wise was a student of Stephen Jay Gould. I always forget that. And it's true, though.
Just because you went to school doesn't mean you learned stuff.
Yeah, if Gould were still alive, I would be curious to know what he thought of Kurt Wise. There's a reason that my series about Kurt Wise is called Kurt Unwise.
There are some great examples of it. It's not the ones that you would normally think of. And these are actually based on some good observational data. And both of them relate on how organisms and how humans basically adapt to specific conditions, and both of them relate to the challenge of starvation. And the first observations went all the way back to the 1940s.
Oh, he's just talking about his paper about the observed effects on Chinese newborns in the wake of the one of the Great Leaps Forward that Mao did, in which he was going to do some agricultural reform. You know what happened when Mao did his 5-year agricultural reform plan?
I'm going to guess it starts with food and rhymes with shortage.
Yeah, I was going to say famine, but that also works. Yeah, a lot of people starve to death. Because it turns out that telling people to just grow crops in their yard doesn't create enough food to feed all of China, the most populous country in the world. Turns out.
Crazy how that works.
I know. And also, using your planned economy to try to get things like farming equipment to all your collective farms, which are already mostly staffed by people who don't know what they're doing. And your planned economy has no way to rationalize the distribution of goods because it has no price signals. Yeah, that also leads to starvation.
He had one good idea. Just really the one.
Which one was it?
And it wasn't that one.
Which one was
Landlords.
it? Yeah, so
Was it?
Turns out that, all of that is a disaster. However, in the wake of that, people studied Chinese newborns from survivors of the famine, and they found that they had a different expression of their genotype than people who had a similar genotype that did not have parents who had undergone significant amounts of starvation. And it was found to be epigenetic. So here's the thing,
I was going to say, doesn't malnutrition influence, how you develop?
Yeah, it does. It influences how you develop, and it also can affect your epigenetics. Now, real quick, for £2, don't want to get the currencies wrong. Benthic Tunicate B2022 said CET equals word salad, and then there was an attempt to use the channel kaiju emojis, but different apps for YouTube are weird about that. So we'll take a drink anyway. Because you do very obviously have a channel membership, and so because you tried, we will accept it. But here's the problem with epigenetics. It doesn't actually do what Randy needs it to. So, for instance, we know, like in his Mexican cavefish, we know that there are actual genetic mutations that result in things like blindness or eyelessness, which is more accurate. So, epigenetics doesn't get you that. We know that some of the things that he thinks are a result of continuous environmental tracking are based on changes to the genome, not the epigenome. So this paper doesn't help. But anyway.
Right at the end of World War II.
If only getting a tan brought your eyeballs back.
Which is part of this question. I'm very curious to see if he actually answers that.
The Germans had invaded Holland, and they were restricting the food that the people there were getting.
Oh, he's going for a different famine study. Okay, weird.
Oh, all right.
In my video series, it was scripted that I did. He used examples from China. I guess he's going for a Dutch study. Because also remember, Holland is only kind of a place. It's true.
Okay, I know, but still, I had to laugh at that.
And these people
Not
were
everyone
starving.
in the chat's gonna get that.
Well,
but I did.
The geography nerds will. Holland is only kind of a place.
But women were still getting pregnant during that time. How do humans respond when they are in starvation conditions? That was
Well, a lot of them respond by dying, but
an interesting finding. They found out, and they didn't know the exact underlying mechanism on it, and I think we have a better understanding of it now, that
oh yeah, this is a mention of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That's true. Good point. We'll take a drink for that. Yeah, I forgot. Although, at least this time, he's not directly blaming evolution for the existence of such party. So it's a slight step up. And I would say that, like, the science that was done surrounding this induced famine in, among Dutch people it's a valid study to do, right? The fact that it was caused by National Socialists doesn't change that fact.
Question.
Yes.
Would you ask Dr. Tapioca Weasel if they've been to Holland specifically, or just the Netherlands?
I feel like you just did. Because there are states within the Netherlands that are called, like Northern Holland or something.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the problems is that there isn't really a place that's just called Holland.
that the children that were born during that time actually had a propensity to be what they called calorie hoarders. In other words, mom was in a starvation condition.
This is true.
She was
Take a
being
drink.
starved. Children were born, and they had this tendency to hoard their calories. And what tipped them off
This is one of those reasons that periodic fasting should only be recommended by a qualified medical professional, because if you put your body into those conditions on a repeated or semi-regular basis, it's not going to make you lose weight. You're just going to start hoarding calories.
And by that, we
So-
largely mean it's going to reduce your metabolism.
Yeah, it's going to slow it down. It's be like, oh no, I'm burning calories too fast because I don't know when I'm going to get more.
Yep.
So it's going to do the opposite of what you want it to do. Just saying.
But you'll be famine resistant.
Famine resistant, yeah.
was, and this was not only in Holland, but even in the United States during the 1950s.
I'm a little skeptical of that. Even at the height of World War II, people weren't really starving in the US in large part.
But in the 50s, what is he referring to?
I don't even know. Like it's not the Dust Bowl, because that was decades before. It's not war
Yeah,
rationing.
that's okay. Let him cook.
Okay.
Even
Okay.
though women were not starving, they had a limited diet compared to this.
I
So you had the
guess.
children in Holland.
In
and you
the
had
50s?
I mean, I guess if you got pregnant in the 40s and then you're testing the kids in the 50s, maybe that's what he means. But yeah, the 50s wasn't really like a time of great food shortages in America.
Yeah, I'm very perplexed by this.
people and children in America who were born with mothers with more
Yeah, Holland was a province of the Netherlands, but it got divided into North Holland and South Holland, meaning that Holland is only kind of a place.
Kind of a place.
Yeah. It's like if I said I went to Dakota.
I was literally about to say Dakota.
Nice. It's like, it's kind of a place.
I went to Carolina.
Yeah. It's like,
Which one?
it's kind of a place.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't say it's not a
Yeah.
place. Kind of.
Yeah.
of
You know.
restricted diet that tended to be calorie hoarders. But they grew up in a society where they were actually calorie abundant.
And then they got fat.
So they grew up in
And they get fat, yeah.
society which was mismatched from what their parents were in.
So an example of continuous environmental tracking, I want to make sure we get this. An example of the thing that Randy says is going to overturn natural selection is that if your mom didn't have a lot of food when she was pregnant with you, and then you have a lot of food, you're going to get fat. That right there, that fact, debunks natural selection. Somehow. Okay, Randy.
Just a doubt.
Now, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has just gifted 5 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which means that we have memberships going to Snorefoot, Eric Davis, Morena, Shade Dragon, there we go, and Charles Starbuck. Welcome, everybody. Everybody, stop sending Pelagic
Pelagic
tunicates.
tunicates.
Send tetrapods and
Nope.
Cecil tunicates. As God intended.
I will not.
See,
I will not.
Dr. Tapioca
I
Weasel did it.
refuse.
Dr. Tapioca Weasel knows what's up.
Yeah, well, I don't care if someone else did it, because if everybody jumped off a bridge, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, it might depend on which bridge it was and why they were jumping off.
Nah. I'm alright.
Or maybe they would just
Go
be
jumping off bridges.
Maybe they would just be summoning a tulpa by jumping off that bridge.
Oh, that's a deep cut.
That's a really deep cut. If you get that one in the
Ooh, that's a
chat,
deep
I will
cut.
be impressed. All right, let's take
Yeah,
5
if you
drinks.
get that,
1,
yeah, if someone in the chat gets that, I will be
2,
very impressed.
3, 4, 5.
Finish my drink.
Now here's the thing. Oh,
Hey, we got some more memberships. Woo!
Benthic Tunicate.
More pelagic
D2022
tunicates.
just gifted 5 more Dinosaur Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to RD, Ben Joyner, Ria Jays, and SAHB. And then DM KJV get book title wing for $5 says CET or natural selection. The result is that turtles are still the best tetrapod. All right. Well, let's take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2.
I don't think anybody in the
3.
chat got the deep cut.
Mm-mm.
Okay, though.
4. And 5. Look, it was a movie with a great prologue.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
I don't think that's a spoiler. It had a great prologue. All right. Didn't you see that before it came out?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Like 3 years before.
Jeez. It was that long?
Yes. It was. It was almost exactly 3 years. I don't want to give away details, but because studios gobble up other studios.
Yeah.
Plus, I
Yeah.
think they knew they were sitting on something that was.
Oh, goodness. Something
So they just
fell.
dumped it.
A dog just knocked a whole bunch of things over. Hey, dog, don't do
Uh-oh.
that. It's probably fine. I don't see anything that was damaged. Stop knocking things over, boy. All right, here we go.
And because they tended to be calorie hoarders, and you were in a calorie abundant environment, a calorie hoarder means is you don't generally burn them and expend them as quickly as you normally would. They ended up having issues with obesity and diabetes. And then the same experiment.
You know who's not a calorie hoarder?
You? Yeah.
I am not a fan. A good deal.
You should just tell your mom that you're angry at her for not having starved herself more when she was pregnant.
Yeah, really.
Damn it, Mom! My metabolism is too high. You ate too much when you were pregnant. How
Her
could
mom
you?
also ate too much when she was pregnant because she's also very, very thin, yeah.
Okay.
What was done even, it wasn't really an experiment. It was done, the research was done.
Oh, Liz D.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Hey, I just checked to make sure. Rationing did not cause food shortages in the U.S. It actually made people healthier because they ate less sugar and more veggies, more chicken, less beef.
Yeah.
Bam!
The American diet is not very good. And I'm not going to say that it's like I'm not eating it, because, I mean, I live in the United States. Although, I do try to get veggies in. And I do try to not eat meat with every meal, because, goodness, that's not really all that healthy for you. And I do have more chicken than beef. So I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
It's so funny, because, like, I have almost inverse nutritional needs than most of my, like, peers. So... yeah, I'm like, no, I'm trying to get calories. I need salt. I need, like, protein in high doses. And just, so frustrating anyway. First world problems for people with high metabolism anyway.
I mean, ultimately, that's a problem for anyone with a high metabolism. It's just that you can usually meet those needs.
Yeah, I have the ability to meet those needs. It's not like I'm gonna just waste away, so... like, if I need a lot of protein, I could quite literally walk across the street and get it. So, and I wouldn't have to forage. That's nice.
Well, okay. You might have to walk across, like, 2 streets, though.
No, I could do it in one.
Okay.
Yeah, I could do it in one.
In China.
It would be breaking a pedestrian law, but I could do it.
Okay, well, legally, you would have to cross 2 streets.
Legally, I would have to cross 2 streets.
All right. Vandelli 1998 for $5 says, Dapper, if Ashanti is secretly blackmailing you to have a pelagic tunicate as an emoticon, blink twice, citation needed, and
Citation needed.
and a Mothra emoji, which we'll take a drink for.
Good.
That's a really good super chat. I love that one.
DMKGV get book title wing says, speaking of the American diet, hey Dapper Dinosaur, do you need any more rice?
No, I am still currently over 70 pounds of rice. Because at some point someone sent me 60 pounds of rice when I already had a further 30 in my pantry. It'll be a while till I need more rice.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got so much rice. It's gonna last probably more than a year.
I was gonna say, I mean, you could donate that to a food bank in those quantities because holy crap.
Look, if anyone sent me more rice, that's probably what would end up happening to it. And there's actually there's a food bank. I think the nearest food bank is run by like a Lutheran church or something. And they would probably get some rice if anyone bought me more rice from my wish list.
Also, speaking of food banks, you should, as a general rule, donate financially to them and don't just give them like random canned goods because they get discounts buying food in bulk.
Well, there you go.
There you go. The more you know.
Benthic Tunicate B2022 for £5 says, in response to Vandalia, I am actually a bot created by Dapper to express his love for magic tunicates. That's a lie, by the way. That is not true. All right.
When I was a child in the early 1960s, my mom would say to me, eat everything on your plate because there's what? Starving children in China.
Which never made sense to me. For me, it was Africa because, the Chinese famine had long since gone by, but the Zimbabwe Rhodesia famine was in full swing when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I remember one time I said to my mom, well, can we send it to the kids in Africa? The things I don't want to eat? He's like, no.
Right.
It's like, well, then why do I care about the kids starving in Africa? What does that matter?
Right, yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
Not that I don't care, but like I don't see what me finishing my dinner is going to do to help or hinder the starvation in Africa. Like I don't see the connection.
I do want to address Terry Rana in the chat, who asks, can you have too much rice? And I'm not even Asian. Well, my grandfather's Asian, so I'm gonna just come out there and say, no, you can't have too much rice.
Look, I can only physically fit so much rice in this house.
Okay.
So, Landon Knoll, who's been a member for 13 months and is at the amniote level, says, tetrapod, sessile tunicate is greater than pelagic tunicate, and AIG is a bag of pelagic tunicates. I'll take a drink for that. I like it. Also, heavy emoji use. Very, very impressive.
Most impressive.
I need to make that as a GIF. Like, impressive. Most impressive from Star Wars. Because whenever I look for it as a GIF, it's just not there.
Yeah, it's never there.
So I need to make that as a GIF, right? Because I don't understand why that isn't a common GIF. Because I think of it all the time. Whenever I think something's impressive, I'm like, oh, that's impressive. Most impressive.
Most impressive.
Yeah.
I can't not say that line. I don't even like Star Wars that much, but even I do it.
I mean, look, I like the original trilogy. And I liked what's now Legends. And I liked a bunch of the LucasArts video games. But in the last, decade or so, I've just lost any care that I had for Star Wars. I just don't care anymore. Not because the movies that I liked are worse, but because everything new that's been coming out from Star Wars, I'm just like, this is just mostly trash. And also
I just don't care.
Well, also giving the video game license to Electronic Arts was a huge misstep, in my opinion.
I think it's still the most downvoted comment in all of Reddit history.
Their sense of pride and accomplishment from EA. Look, there's a reason that EA
paywalling Darth Vader.
There's a reason that EA is always in the top 3 for most hated companies in the entire United States.
Yeah.
They're a garbage company. There's currently 2 franchises I will give them money for. Mass Effect, Dead Space. That's it. Interestingly enough, both primarily single-player games, the kind they don't like to make.
Yeah, really.
Goodness. And I will say, actually, I did enjoy the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, even if it did have more microtransactions than it should have. I still had fun with it.
Mark Smith made a comment that I can hear the power of the dark side.
Yeah, we need more good Empire Strikes Back gifs. Because Empire Strikes Back is by far the best Star Wars movie.
I know that this is gonna make me in the minority, but every time you say it with a hard G, it hurts a little bit physically.
Say what?
GIF.
Oh no, they're gifs.
No, they're GIFs.
Because it's not.
They are.
The G stands for graphics.
It's not. No, it's not graph. It's not genealogy.
But it is get and
I
give.
I and E are soft vowels in almost all Romance languages.
What about get or give? And also English, not a Romance language. It's Germanic.
Those are verbs. Those are not nouns.
What about?
I'm just saying. I'm not telling you to pronounce it different. I'm just letting you know that when you say it with a hard G, it hurts a little bit.
What about get? That's a noun.
Don't care.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know. It hurts me a little bit, and I'm putting that out there. GIF. I'm not going to not say it that way.
I am strongly on Team GIF.
Cool. Live your best life. I honestly pronounced it GIF before I even knew that there was a guy who was like, no, I made them, and this is the way you say it. And I was like, oh, nice. He confirms what I was already doing. Cool.
That's prescriptivist nonsense.
Don't care.
Okay, here we go.
Everybody's mom must have been telling them that. Eat what's on your plate because there's starving children in China.
How does that meme spread? Because, like, how is it that every mom got that same basic thing? Like, does it just spread via osmosis through the mom network or something?
I think it's just testament to, how the laws are written on people's hearts, and everybody just intrinsically knows that there's a God and, how morals work. There's starving children in China. It's just there.
I mean, look, I haven't checked my heart, but I feel like there's fewer than 614 mitzvot inscribed upon it.
Well, there were starving children.
If you're a Christian, it's a completely different number. It's probably like 3.
At least 10, come on.
I mean, maybe. It's not at least 10, because number 4, they just kind of went, nah.
China, but they were starving everybody in China. And one of their 5-year plans started about 1959. From 1959 to 1963-64, over 40 million people in China starved to death.
Yeah, that's basically accurate, and I'll take a drink for it. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the biggest indictments of the Chinese Communist Party.
Crypto457 just made me laugh. Gag you are.
Okay. That's pretty good, actually. Reverend Howell for £2 says, show us the graphic or it never happened. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't care.
Exactly.
I'm always going to say it as a GIF. I don't care how other people pronounce it. I'm not changing.
We are now...
Literally, I don't care.
We are now officially at war, Vishanti. Just so you know.
Okay.
You can expect...
You mean we weren't already battling with the tunicates?
Well, those were just skirmishes. Now it's a full-blown war.
Okay.
Yeah. That was just little border skirmishes, those don't count. It's like
we're just gonna...
It's like periodically there's these villages over at the foothills of the Himalayas that like the Indian army will roll into, and the villagers are all like, oh yeah, we're big patriotic Indians, yay, wave the Indian flag. And then a few months later, like the Chinese army will roll in and they're like, yeah, Chinese Communist Party, we're big fans. They fly the Chinese flag. And then when neither army is there, they're just like, we're just here farming our fields and milking our goats. We don't really care. Whatever.
Honestly, this is like the Korean demilitarized zone.
Ooh, you mean it's full of tigers?
Yeah.
And landmines?
And people trolling each other, blasting loud music at random hours.
Yes. Or sending DVD copies of the interview on hot air balloons.
Yes.
Because that's a thing that happened.
Incredible. Yes.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But they were able to track the offspring of children who lived in cities where their parents were being starved, and they were able to track them. All
right, so here's the deal. We're going to get to the cavefish thing, and then we're going to be done with this video, because I don't care what the next question is. We're going to start a new video, because we don't have that much more to go.
It's a cool study. if mom was being starved but dad wasn't, if dad was being starved but mom wasn't, if mom and dad were being starved, and then people who had moved to that same city from another city where neither one of them were being starved. Isn't that kind of a cool way of doing it? And then they tracked
Yeah,
their
that's how
offspring,
science works.
and they found that the offspring of children whose parents were being starved because they had the same tendency to be calorie hoarders had a much higher tendency to develop type 2 diabetes and hypercholesterolemia and heart disease. And not only that, it was proportional to which parent was starved. Higher if dad was starved, higher yet if mom was starved, and highest yet if both mom and dad were starved.
None of which is terribly surprising, but okay.
How does that happen? That
Okay.
happens because
Epigenetics, that's how.
as
Hey,
mom
Dapper,
is
how
making
does that
eggs and dad is
overturn natural selection and common ancestry?
It doesn't.
Can't believe.
Right. Kelsa, please.
making sperm,
So please.
markers are put on those cells. They're epigenetic markers. They're little chemical tags. And they
If only evolutionary biologists knew about epigenetics. Man,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Would
I
really,
guess...
really change things.
Yeah, I guess they just don't, though.
turn genes on. They regulate genes being turned on and off during development, during that time. It's not even a change in the genome. It changes in the regulations of those genes. And the changes in the regulations of those genes, and if we do another talk in a year or so, I'll show you some more examples, can affect how you develop for the rest of your life.
That's true.
That's
Take
an
a drink.
interesting one of just humans having the ability to track. In terms of the cavefish and their eyes, the answer is we don't know yet if the eye.
Okay, so real quick,
Randy!
Randy,
What do you mean you don't know yet? You tested this and they get a tan, but they don't have eyes. Again, where are the eyes?
so we're going to get into that real quick. Actually, we're going to let him talk a little bit more, then we'll get into it.
Will come back, and that is one of our next area of experimentation. I do know.
Okay, but Randy, you've already cited in your talks, not this one, but a previous one that I covered, the paper that you're using to base this whole Mexican cavefish eye thing on. And that specifically said that the way that they got the eyes to return, because they did, was by breeding cavefish from separate caves together because their eye production genes were broken in different ways between the two populations, which meant that when you crossbred the populations, they had a full functioning set of eye genes, of developmental genes that produce eyes. Which directly contradicts you, Randy, because according to your idea, animals consciously observe the environment, make choices about their biology, which, by the way, I don't see any interviews with those women or men who were starved saying, oh, well, you know, because I was starving, I chose to make my baby more of a calorie hoarder. That's not a thing
The
that
baby
happens.
just came out of the womb and was like, I'm going to turn on my genes for calorie hoarding.
Mhm.
That's definitely how it works.
So instead of this, two different populations of blind cavefish had different mutations, meaning that it probably was not induced by the cavefish, which is Randy's idea, basically. And then, when you crossbred them, they were able to produce offspring with eyes. That's a Trojan source. And even though it wasn't just given, it's the source that I know he uses, because I've seen him use it before. And so we're just going to take a drink, because the only source he has for these Mexican cave tetras, which is the kind of fish they are, they're tetras, directly contradicts continuous environmental tracking. We'll take a drink. And of course, Pelagic Tunicate Truth Official for €2 says, Grand gear full of graphical guy ganders is AIG.
AIG.
We'll take a drink. And I'm just
Loving
going to
that
point out,
alliteration. I know what you're going to say, and I still don't care.
gear is another
Don't
example.
care.
Okay.
As I pointed out in the chat, if I make a thing and I tell people what it is and they go, nah, it's something else, they're doing it wrong. Just letting you know.
That sounds like
Throwing it out
some
there.
prescriptivism.
Sounds like I made something and I tell people what it is and then they just go, nah, something else.
Yeah. They're fully
'Cause
within their
that-
rights to
That's
do
what
so.
the guy. And they're wrong. Hope that helps.
That the cavefish, the surface fish, which had eyes when they found their ways in the cave, did not lose their eyes over 8 million years.
No, they probably lost them over a few thousand years, maybe even a few hundred years.
Randy.
Let's gonna take a drink. Like,
Dude,
what?
freaking Randy Galooza, like, again, I would just be in the audience like, hey, do tans bring eyeballs back?
They do not, as it turns out, according to his own experiments.
Okay. And then he's like, yo, we don't know yet. You've been testing this and they don't, so
Mhm.
it doesn't.
Yeah, it's pretty conclusive.
And that 8 million years was then reduced to 2 million years, and then reduced in the literature to 100,000 years. That was reduced to 20,000 years, and a recent paper came out where it said it could be anywhere from near time to 2,000 years.
Okay, so a paper came out saying,
Okay, Randy.
hey, evolution can happen pretty quickly in terms of troglodytic species. Your point?
So I know they did not lose their eyes over a long period of time, and I know experimentally they can lose their eyes within one generation.
Okay, Randy.
The question is, can they get their eyes back? And I don't know yet, because it's highly complicated as to what the fish are actually sensing and tracking. You think it's...
That's because you haven't given any good examples of them actually being able to sense and track this environment in order to induce mutations. And again, I'm going to bring it back up, because I do it every time. The Luria-Delbruck experiment already debunks this version of continuous environmental tracking. What's the Luria-Delbruck experiment, I hear 95 of you or so asking? Well,
Hey, what is that Luria-Delbruck experiment?
Let me explain. There was this question. Are mutations induced by environmental pressures, or do they simply happen spontaneously in various populations, only to then be acted upon by natural selection as a result of environmental pressures? The experiment involved bacteria being exposed to antibiotics, something that kills them. That's kind of the point of antibiotics. So, we have two... Oh, sorry, I just bumped my mic. My apologies. We have two basic ideas. One, induced mutation. Two, spontaneous mutations not induced by environmental pressures. If exposure to environmental pressures induces specific mutations to adapt to those environmental pressures, then when you test, say, 5 different colonies of bacteria, they should all develop the same level of antibiotic resistance at about the same rate across the board, no matter what their starting level of resistance is. Or, if mutations are spontaneous, then when you do the same thing and you have these 5 bacterial colonies, some of them will develop resistance faster and stronger than others. So you run the experiment, right? You get a bunch of bacterial colonies together. Hopefully you make them clonal, right? So like what you do is first you spread out the bacteria so that you get little samples. Then you pick some of these samples, or one of these samples, right? Grow it on a new plate of agar. Do the same thing again. So now you have only a few generations difference from your original sample colony to this. So now you have essentially 5 clonal colonies. Grow them into full colonies, then introduce antibiotics into their colony. Oh man, the Luria-Delbruck disconfirmed induced mutations. Which means that this idea that Randy has been debunked for over 80 years, because that's how long ago the Luria-Delbruck experiment was conducted. 80 years ago.
Wow.
That's long.
That's not recent.
Yeah, that's how long we've known this is stupid.
I love Randy, like, we don't know. 80 years ago we did.
Yeah, we knew 80 years ago, buddy. It's almost a century ago. Most of the people in my audience will live to see the Luria-Delbruck experiment hit its 100th anniversary.
We should throw a celebration for that.
In like 20 years. We'll make a plan right now. I mean, hey, that bet about whether or not neuroscience would explain consciousness fully in the next 25 years did recently come due, and it turns out that no neuroscience did not do that.
It's only light and dark. It isn't. I can tell you that. It is not just light and dark. Cave conditions are very different than freshwater conditions.
No, cave conditions are very different from non-cave conditions. It's still fresh water in the cave, Randy. What are you talking about? I'm just taking a drink out.
In terms of the amount of dissolved
Randy
oxygen,
just,
carbon dioxide, which
like,
can also
brain
be two
just
independent
symbol, the little symbol monkey.
Yeah,
Just-
from The Simpsons.
Now,
variables, pH,
yeah, we don't
water
know. We
conductivity,
do,
organic
Randy,
materials,
but
and on and on and
whatever.
on. So which one of these conditions or which combinations of conditions are the fish detecting? We don't know yet. We don't know.
It's so
but
fun.
we're doing
Terry Rana in the
experiments
chat says, how can you reasonably expect Randy to keep up with science that old? It's so weird because normally they're always that far behind, if not more. So
well, maybe
you
in
would
10
think.
maybe in 10 years the creationists
10 years will catch up to that.
Yeah, they'll integrate the Luria-Delbruck
Yes.
experiment. Okay.
Yes. And the chat's also asking if in 20 years the bitch meat timer will still be running. Honestly,
That's up to Sal.
That's plausible.
Yeah, it's completely up to Sal.
But yeah, it's up to Sal. It's totally up to Sal.
Now there's
You can
also
stop that clock right now.
There's also the question, like, will this channel be going in 20 years? I don't know. I'd like for it to be. It would be cool. Although, you know,
Man, who even knows what YouTube would look like in 20 years? That's crazy.
Maybe there won't even be a YouTube in 20 years. Who knows?
Who knows?
So
yeah, Gigi, I'm with you that Randy should stick to we don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On those,
He'd be a lot better
I can
off.
tell you that offspring of fish who were blind fish that were raised in the light, those ones that I showed you, they regain their pigmentation on their first spawn, rather than their eyes regressing within the first 24 hours, which happens. So in other words, babies start to develop eyes. The eyes start to develop normally, and then a switch comes on, and within 24 hours, those eyes start to regress. On the first generation
Wait,
of...
what?
I don't know if that's true or not.
Wait, what?
So I will say that there are animals that start to develop anatomy that then just kind of doesn't fully develop, right? Like snakes develop limb buds. You know, humans develop a tail. So like, that's not implausible to me.
Fish that were raised.
But is it happening in that like fish experiment though?
I don't know.
Okay.
Their eyes did not regress for about 5 days. So it was a big difference. So something is happening. What combination?
That was not in the paper that I know that he relies on. So I don't know if it's true because he's apparently done his own experiments afterwards, but I've not read it in anything that was vetted by experts in the field. So I don't know if this is true or not.
Citation needed.
See, citation needed, but
big,
it's not.
Big citation needed.
It's a big citation needed, but I'm not going to say it's not true because I don't know enough to say that. Heather Kuhn,
skeptical, but okay.
Yeah, Heather Kuhn for $2 says, "What happens to the timer if Sal dies? Oh, we'll retire it."
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I'm not going to expect someone who's not alive to go watch my videos. That seems unreasonable. Although, hey, if you're out there and you're a ghost, give me watch time. I don't care. That's fine. Ghosts can watch my videos. It's
That'd be nice. Yeah. You got all day. I mean, what else are you doing?
Yeah,
floating
haunting
around,
going woo,
slamming doors.
Yeah, moving planchettes.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Of the conditions we don't know yet, but that's an active area of experimentation.
Thank you. How do you propose explaining the fossil record of...
Oh, that's it. We're not going to...
Yeah, we're way over, but that's okay.
Yeah, we're not going to have the fossil record of humans explained. We're not even going to bother with it. Instead, we might actually just start up Gish with Vish. Yeah.
Finally!
Yeah, I'm gonna, you know, if anyone has any good Dwayne Gish videos they can send my way, please do. Also, audio recordings are fine too, because I can just, you know, set that to some silly video and put it up. But yeah, earlier today, I did make a set for that. I think it's a decent set. I don't know, what do you think, Vishanti? You're the only other one who's seen it.
I mean, so far it looks pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that being said, I want to say thank you very much, guys. We currently have more likes than viewers. We're at 105 likes and 91 viewers. So, hey, good job on that.
Yeah. I think some people were having problems with the audio, and they'll probably come back and maybe watch it later, I hope.
Well, I hope so, because, look, I have no idea why the audio levels are different, because I changed literally nothing in my settings. So I have no idea if it's YouTube, if it's OBS, if it's Discord, I don't know. But let's take a look. So, on the 4th, we're going to be doing Kent with Bent, but we're going to be starting it 6 hours earlier than normal. It'll be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and that is because there is a place nearby that is going to be doing things like fireworks and food trucks, and I'm going to go do that.
Making loud noises.
Yes. Well, actually, you know, the dogs around here aren't super bothered by that, which is...
Oh,
it's nice. Yeah. So that's going to be Kent with Bent on Tuesday the 4th. That's because that's America Day, in case you are not American and you don't know about it. Today's Canada Day. In a few days, it will be America Day.
Fade to Grey Ultra Official. If the set is a Tunicate Battleground, and now I like that idea.
Well, unfortunately, I made it before I declared war on Vishanti, so it's not, but maybe next time.
Darn.
On Thursday, we're going to be doing the second part of the Jeffrey Tompkins series. So, more nonsense from the guy who cannot add 3-digit numbers. Despite being Jeffrey a PhD. Yeah, it's... All right, and then Saturday...
Isn't that Erica's nemesis?
Yeah, basically. Like to a large degree, Andrew Snelling is my nemesis because of how much I loathe his dishonesty. And Jeffrey Tompkins is kind of Erica's for the same reasons.
Yeah.
And that's largely because the areas that I know the most about are also the areas that Stelling talks about, and the same thing for Tompkins and Erica, right? So like, yeah. But no, actually, I sent Erica that series before it premiered, and
Nice.
yeah, she was like, yeah, no, he's terrible. Like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know. Benthic Tunicate B2022 for £5 says, set the Gish stuff to a video of paint drying. Visual will match the audio. You know, I could do that. That's a thing I could do. Actually, what I might do is what I did with my my members only video, where I
love that where the mouth is moving Canadian style.
Yeah, Canadian, like what you call it? Actually, no, it's not quite Canadian style. It's like Saddam Hussein style from the South Park movie, where just the jaw goes, because the Canadian style
because it's just the jaw, their head, the upper part of their head moves. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I might end up doing that if it's just an audio recording where just the jaw flaps up and down.
I mean, if we're gonna listen to Dwayne Gish, we may as well be laughing the whole time.
We will be anyway, no matter what. So don't worry about that. With that being said, guys, I'm hoping to have the Gish with Vish start on the 8th. It'll be Gish with Vish #1. It's not going to have a title or a subtitle or anything. That'll come with sequels. And yeah, I also want to say, for those of you who have been my supporters for the past month, you guys know that I took a little bit of time to sort of hit the brakes on video production because I was feeling a bit burned out this last couple weeks. I am expecting to get back into it pretty hard starting on Tuesday. Also, it might be a little bit delayed because of just how this day worked out, with today being Saturday and getting the full list of patrons and channel members into credits. So you guys will probably see June credits at least today, probably on Tuesday. Hopefully by Saturday, I will have July credits figured out. So just wanted to say that. I think that's it. Thank you guys. And
TC the Unbeliever. Do members get members only jackets? I love that.
I would love to say yes, but I don't know how to make that happen. All right, but we're going to get out of here, and I'm going to be heading over to the Discord so we can watch some Power Rangers Turbo, and thereby live in sin, according to my most recent poll about that. You
that was great.
Yeah, that was. All right.
That was great.
Bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Benthoven, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Elleron Teller, Phil Rivara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostig Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babby, Monkey They Them, San, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.